Hi class, here is a fun 3.1b extension lesson on standard form. There's some interesting things that you can identify when you get used to all of these uh, characteristics of standard form. So I hope this lesson is an eye opener for you. It's not that long, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Um, so it says when dealing with a linear equation in standard form, the slope, y-intercept, and the x-intercept can all be determined directly from standard form using ratios, just by looking at the ratios. Okay, so let's go ahead and just simplify these values and let's convert this standard form equation. Obviously, we know that ax plus by is equal to c is our standard form, but let's convert it and isolate y and convert it into slope intercept, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract ax from both sides, and I end up getting by is equal to negative ax plus c. And now I'm going to divide the entire thing, the entire equation, by b. So your final answer in slope-intercept form is going to be y is equal to negative a over b x plus c over b. And that's actually quite interesting because if you realize that if you know your A, your B, and your C values in standard form, this ratio right here is always going to represent your slope. This is always going to represent your M value. Negative A over B is your slope. And then C over B is always going to be your y-intercept. Okay, that's very, very interesting because if I give you something in standard form, if you memorize these ratios, you will then immediately be able to convert to slope-intercept form. Okay, what ratio represents slope? Just wrote it. I'll write it one more time. Is negative a over b. What ratio represents the y-intercept? I'll write that one more time. B, lowercase b, is equal to c over b uppercase, right? That's why it's really important. I know it's kind of funny that we're using the letter b twice, but an uppercase b and a lowercase b are actually totally different. So please be careful of that. Okay, now in terms of the y-intercept, how would I calculate the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is the x-intercept. The x-intercept is when you plug in 0 for y. So we realize that it's, let's say our original is ax plus by is equal to c. The x-intercept would mean that this entire value explodes and goes away, right? So ax is going to equal c when we're calculating for the x-intercept. Therefore, if I divide both sides by a, I get x is equal to c over a. Now, this is truly an extension lesson, class. I don't expect you to memorize all of these ratios. I don't really even like the word memorize. It's just showing you that it's possible to really calculate the slope, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept rather quickly if you know the relationships between the ratios. Okay, so let's just practice this very, very quickly. And this is kind of like your cheat sheet, your answer key here. And now we're going to utilize it for number 5. Okay, so we know that for number 5, our A value is 5, our B value is -1, and our C value is -5. Okay, now according to what we just calculated, our slope has to be negative a over b, which is, in this case, negative 5 over negative 1b, which means our slope is 5. Okay, now if you don't believe me, you could also just convert this standard form into slope-intercept form, right? Obviously, that's probably the route that you should always go, because you don't want to follow just formulas all the time unless you really are 100% sure with your formula and you understand exactly what you're doing, right? The y-intercept is c over b. We calculated it as c over b, so technically c is negative 5. Right, c over b, I'll write it, negative 5 over negative 1, which means our y-intercept is 5. And that actually does, as I'm looking at the standard form equation, that does sound right. Our x-intercept is going to be the ratio of c over a, which is literally negative 5 over 5, which is negative 1. Now, let's go ahead and convert our standard form equation and see if this was all true. This should be true, and this will be true, but just double check. Okay. I actually think that this standard form equation is rather easy to convert into slope-intercept form, because if you just move two things, you get an isolated y is equal to 5x plus 5. Okay, so we know that it starts at 5, goes up 5 over 1, down 5, left 1, down 5, left 1. And you kind of realize that everything that was stated here checks out. The x-intercept is at negative 1 comma 0. The y-intercept is at 0 comma 5. The slope is 5 over 1. Okay, this is just a quick extension lesson to show you that there are ratios that you could use when something is in standard form to calculate the slope, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept. Ideally, you want to be able to convert your standard form into slope-intercept form anyways, so you could double check your answers. I probably would do that method first, and then I would double check with these calculated ratios. Okay? Go ahead and try this again with these three problems. It's the same thing. And you just want to make sure that your notes for the first page are accurate. Okay? Thanks for watching.